side of the lake. I was dicking around with a modified case that I'm making for Trent for his 7mm Punchy, and I lost track of time. I'm going to try and set the throat up in his gun for these 197 grain 7mm produce.
Let's have a closer look there.
Sierra Match Kings.
When that's the case, it's a bloody long case, a bloody long projectile.
Big long case. And a big long projectile. That's a Sierra, what's it, 198? 197 grain.
Yeah, you need a special twist rate to shoot them. Like you need a 1 in 7 twist to actually shoot these produce, or they destabilise in the air. So it was really good. Sierra brought out a heap of projectiles. What's that?
That's what that is.
Is it? Sierra brought out a heap of projectiles which no one could use because no one manufactured a barrel for them.
Oh.
So it was actually really good to see them jump first, you know? Like, a lot of manufacturers would be a bit coy about doing something like that if there's no market for it. But they made a market for it, and I congratulate them, and you know, we'll support their products because it's a really well designed product, and we've built a rifle around this projectile essentially, so it should perform really well.
Here's one that we prepared earlier.
So I've got to try and make it. I don't think I'll be able to get it to fit in the magazine. What kind of gun is it? Oh, but it's in a chassis, isn't it?
Yeah, ESS.
You can get a long metal one, sure.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
It's ESS. Yeah.
ESS.
Yeah.
The ESS chassis.
That's all we can get.
I thought you were getting one of those
ACCs.
No,
Or
the new ones.
The ACC.
No, the new one, new one.
The XRS.
Yeah.
I got one of those from a 6mm.
Oh, okay. That's
because
where I
they
got my wires crossed.
They don't do a long action in the XRS.
Okay.
And it turns out they don't do a long action for Weatherby in the ACC either. So
Okay.
we went an ESS.
What's this wee shit?
Okay.
You went an ESS.
Me and all my multiple
What magazine length is it?
3.715.
Oh, so the short one.
Yeah, well, that's all they do it for. Yeah. So here's what it is. But you know, when we're running that one there, let's face it, I really only send single feed anyway. So.
Oh, so you don't care if I make it single feed? You want me to make the throat? You don't care if they won't fit in the mag?
No, it's not an overly important factor of that running that projectile at that point in time. You know,
I'll just make the throat to suit.
Yeah, it's only going to be used to shooting long-range targets anyway at that point.
Yeah, but you say that, but
and
you're
if
going
I
to
ever-
take it out shooting some roads.
Well, then I'll be changing the projectile to something.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and that'll probably give me the ability then to seat it in the magazine.
Well, you want it really.
G'day, Chris. Spencer's
Yeah,
on.
I had 2 projectiles.
Stuart, hello.
Was Spencer on? Was Spencer live today?
I don't know. Matty Lloyd's on.
Because I wanted to find out how his poop bag went. Because he's going to send it off for testing. Shit in a bag and send it off and get it tested. I want to see if he passed or not. Passed the test.
Yes, that
Did
is
he,
approved.
did he chuck a couple of sweeteners in there? Did he chuck a couple of crab cakes in the shit bag to fucking, he sweeten the deal a bit, so when the guys do the testing they sort of, oh yeah, you're really good.
That'd be a good thing to mail on a hot day like at the moment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, big bag of hot shit.
Well, Spencer was saying that they actually had there's a bit in there that says, please do not shit in the envelope. Because people are shitting in the envelope and just sending it back in, in the paper.
Well, here's the thing, who's going into Australia Post with a bag of shit and wanting to send it? And who at Australia Post is accepting it?
Yeah, well, that's true. Who's checking the consistency there? Imagine when they push it through the little slot and it all starts melting out the ends.
So normally with old shit with Bill, we talk about old shit, but we're still going to talk about old shit, but this time we're going to talk about Bill.
Hey Brendan, how are you, mate? Kathy is on. Hi, Kathy.
So Bill's been around for a while. We get a lot of questions about how do you get into gunsmithing and that sort of stuff. What guns do you own and what guns have you shot and all that. And Bill's
How come Zaine doesn't
story
look
is,
anything like you?
maybe it's because I'm his son, but I find his history quite interesting, especially considering it's vastly different from kids that have been born in the last 30 years and grown up in modern society. So, Bill, you were born in 1948,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
Boomer. So it would have been, it's only a couple of years after the war.
Yep.
So when did your parents meet?
I must have met in about 1946. Almost as soon as Dad got out of the army.
Because where was he? He was
in Coolgardie. Well, that's where he ended up. He was all over the islands up in New Guinea, on the Kokoda Trail. He was in the 39th Battalion. So he's all over New Guinea, and he always said it was the islands. And he went to Bougainville, and then he ended up on Morotai eventually.
Oh,
And
right.
he came back to WA in March of 1946 because he was left behind because he was a militia.
so sort of less priority.
Yeah, less priority. He wasn't married, no kids or anything. All the men who had families were given priority to be involved. He got back to here in Gingin. There was a big camp up there in March of 1946.
Yeah, right.
And then as soon as he got out, he went back to Coolgardie where his family was because his sister's husband had been killed over Germany. He was a Lancaster navigator. And so him and his brother, who was also just got out of the army, they built a house in Coolgardie for their sister.
Used all their war earnings and
Yeah,
to pay for it.
their deferred pay. Anyway, my mum was nursing in Coolgardie at the time, and they met there. Then her family moved to Pemberton.
She was nursing in Coolgardie
Yeah,
because she was enrolled in the armed forces as well.
yeah. She was in RAAF as a radio technician.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She had a great time, she said.
But when the war ended, she went in nursing.
Yeah, she came back to WA eventually because the same thing. She was technicians, unmarried young women had no priority for train tickets, and that's how only way you got back across the Northern War. She was in South Australia at the end of the war. She eventually got back to Coolgardie. They met there. Her family went to Pemberton. The old man followed them down there. They got married. I was born in 48. By the time we got to Broome Hill, I was nearly 12. We lived in 13 different houses because we never realised it, but afterwards we realised that the old man suffered badly from PTSD.
Right, because that's not something that we've ever spoken about.
But we only
And he
realised...
probably never spoke about it.
He never spoke about it, no. Mum said that he had bad dreams and so on at times.
Yeah, okay.
Because he directly fought against the Japs in northern New Guinea.
In virtually hand-to-hand combat.
Right in amongst the trenches when they got into guns.
I remember something, and I don't want to put words in your old man's mouth, but I do remember a conversation that we had fucking 20 years ago about how there's this idea, and it's probably true, in that the Japanese never took prisoners. The prisoners that they took, they quickly dispatched of them or treated them very poorly or something like that. But how many prisoners did the Australians take?
My old man said they took one prisoner, and that was only because they woke up one morning and this Jap officer had wandered into their lines, probably looking for food.
Right.
And they took him prisoner, and because they weren't fighting at the time, they were just back behind the lines a bit.
They were obliged to take him as a prisoner.
And an officer and so on had seen him being taken prisoner. So, but he was the only one. And he was an officer, that was one reason they probably kept him alive as well.
But whether it's through sheer will on the behalf of the Japanese to not give in and not surrender, or whether it was a result of Australians being overzealous with their recapturing of places, but virtually no prisoners were taken.
That's right. But it was a terrible war. There was no facilities to hold prisoners. They were walking up muddy paths in the jungle, and so on. So we were just...
Connected to that though, the Australians weren't shy get in amongst it
No, that's
and,
right.
and get right up. And the Americans often got the Australians involved in taking certain.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the old man was wounded twice, and the second time he was wounded was when there were three settlements on the north coast of New Guinea: Gona, Sanandaea, and Buna. And the Yanks were supposed to take Buna, the Australians were going to take Gona. The Americans, unfortunately, were National Guard troops. They were not highly trained, certainly not highly trained for jungle warfare. They were held up. After the Australians took Gona, they were moved and told to take Sanandaea. And the 39th Battalion were down to about 120 men from about 800. They were walking through palm trees, there was palm plantations there, and an Australian mortar bomb landed in the top of a palm tree and exploded in the palm tree, and that's when the old man copped a lump of shrapnel in the back of his leg. It wasn't a bad wound, but then the 39th were so depleted, they were then taken out of the front line, and according to the reports I've read, not only of the 39th Battalion diary, they were told that they had to march to the Popondetta, the airfield, and they would be flown back to Moresby. And one of the sergeants asked, well, is there any trucks for the wounded and the sick? Because most of them had malaria or dysentery or some bloody thing as well. And they were told, no, there'll only be trucks for anyone who falls out, on the march. If someone fell out, they would be picked up by a truck or a jeep or something. And the sergeant said, well, there won't be anyone falling out. So they were pretty pissed off. The 39th were treated pretty poorly.
Because they were a militia that was turned into a fighting force.
They were still, they were militia. Yeah, they were.
So they weren't exactly regular forces. And I mean, arguably the regular forces would have had a fair bit more experience and training.
That's right, yeah.
But so the 39th were a very depleted force,
Yeah.
but they weren't highly trained, but they were hardened.
Well, that's right. They'd been in New Guinea for quite a while. They'd been sent up there to work on the port originally, and then when the government was frightened the Japs would land on northern New Guinea, they sent a company across to Owen Stanley's to try and prevent the Japs, but they were like a day too late.
Yeah.
But anyway, when Dad and Mum got married, and as I said, I went to school in Manjimup, and we lived and worked around Manjimup quite a few different places, and we moved from Manjimup to Mount Barker. We were only there for about 9 months, and we moved to Broome Hill, and that was, as I said, that was the 13th house that we lived in, and I wasn't even 12,
But when you moved to Broome Hill, your old man stayed there.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was a great place to grow up. We're just in the Broome Hill Shire, but the school bus from Noingra came right to our front gate. So we went to Noingra school.
So if you know that area, there's sort of like a triangle: Noingra, Broome Hill, and Tambler.
Yeah.
And you were sort of in the middle of that
that's
triangle.
right. We were 15 miles from each town. Yeah. And we did. Mum and Dad did most of their shopping and that in Broome Hill because it was a little village, had most things there. A grocery shop and hardware and all sorts of everything you needed. One-man police station.
Didn't go to Noingra?
We hardly ever went to Noingra. Only we went there to school.
Yeah.
And the only time Mum and Dad went there was if we had a sports day or something like that.
They preferred to go to Broome Hill.
Yeah, that's right. It was, I don't know why. It was just the way things worked.
Because I was born in Katanning, but I grew up in Niangara, and that was a busy place then. You know, there was probably 1,000, 1,200 people there when I was a kid growing up. Broome Hill had fuck all that.
That's right. Yeah, Broome Hill was a village, Niangara was a town, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we had great fun on this property where Dad was working.
So you were 12 when you moved to Broome Hill?
Yeah.
And
I
Kevin
was 11, and I
Yeah.
turned 12 about a month or so later, yeah.
So Kevin was about 10?
He was only a year younger than me, 14
yeah.
months. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he was 10 or something.
Yeah.
And then there was
Yeah.
Margaret
Yeah, and Ian.
and Ian.
Yeah.
And how younger is Ian? About 6 years?
He's the same,
Is he same age as Mum?
I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, so about
54.
54. Yeah.
He was born, so,
And you moved there at
Oh.
49, so he would have been 5 or 6.
yeah, that's right, he was only young.
Yeah, yeah.
But we had a great time there because we wandered all over this farm, and there was dams to play in, of course, and we never.
Nice, safe things they are, Dan.
Yeah, I know. It's
Yeah.
real safe. Yeah, and so on. But the scourge of Maladup, the farm, was 28 parrots and crows and rainbow lorikeets. Not rainbow lorikeets. Purple crown lorikeets.
Purple crowns, which
Yeah,
you fucking
purple
see fuck all of now.
Yeah.
Probably as a result of you and your brother.
Well, possibly, but we would have shot 500 to 1,000 bloody
28.
28. Because when I was about 13, we'd been saving our pocket money, 2 shillings a week, and we had about £5 between us, the 3 boys. And when we went to Broome Hill once, we saw an air rifle in the hardware shop. And that, we set our hearts on that. And we eventually bought it. The old man licensed it, of course.
So what happened? Where did you go to Broome Hill to license it?
Yeah.
Because it was still it had to be licensed even then.
Yeah.
So what? 1960?
1961 maybe.
Yeah.
60, 61.
And you had to license it,
Yeah.
and there was a one copper in
One
Broome
man
Hill.
police station. It was still there when I got my driver's license. The same copper.
Yeah, yeah.
Great bloke. I'll remember his name in a minute. Anyway,
But he knew when your old man went in there to
Yeah.
license the gun.
all of us were trailing behind him because of brand new gun, you know.
Yeah.
The old man's doing the license, and the copper looks over at us boys standing at the door, and he says, "Now you boys are not going to do anything stupid with this gun, are you?"
So he knew exactly who was using
Yeah,
it.
he knew exactly where it was going. But every Saturday morning we go to Broome Hill shopping with Mum and Dad, and we buy a tin of 500 wasp pellets,
And how much was a tin of 500 wasp pellets?
about 2 and 6,
2 and 6. What's 2 and 6?
25 cents.
25 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And we buy a Phantom comic as well.
Yeah.
So I had to get the Phantom comic.
But and we belted that poor little air rifle, which I've still got, but I just can't find it. I put it away safe somewhere like that.
Really safe, yeah.
Yeah, really safe. So I can't find the darn thing.
So when did the front sight fall off it?
Oh, probably a week after we got it. So we screwed a screw in there and cut the head off the screw, and that was it for evermore.
Well, that was the front sight forever.
Yeah.
Slow you down very much though, or?
No. We broke where it hinges, we broke, because it's only a very light little gun, model 16 diameter. And it's a gun, not a rifle, it's smoothbore. So we did pretty well to shoot 500 parrots with it. We must have reconditioned that little air rifle 10 times, you know, because it only had a leather washer in it, and broke the hinge part, and I remember we took it over to the workshop and soldered a little plate on the side of it and got it working again. We lost the screws out of it because we weren't that smart, breaking it and shutting it all the time, loosened the screws up, and a couple of times they fell out. We had to get fine screws in the workshop again. We had a great time with it. But then
But how did you You were catching rabbits by that then, but you weren't shooting them.
No, that's right. We were trapping. Yeah.
So you trap rabbits.
Yeah.
Why would you trap rabbits?
Well, no, we were trapping rabbits at when we were at Mount Barker because there was a lot of sand there.
Oh, you're only 11 and you're
Yeah.
trapping rabbits there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, because you could sell them for 2 shillings or 1 and 6 or something. I can't remember. It wasn't much.
Yeah, yeah.
And we went to Mount Barker School for a few months, and we'd leave the rabbits at the bus stop, and someone would pick them up and give them to the butcher, and then next day there'd be 3 shillings there or something on the side of the road for it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We knew it.
How did you sort that out though? Like, how would you organise? How would an 11-year-old know to do that?
I can't remember. We were probably told, you know.
Your old man probably said,
Yeah.
"Go and catch some rabbits and then
Yeah.
leave them on the letterbox."
Yeah.
And,
Leave them at the letterbox, and someone will come. All you have to do is gut them. Don't take the skin off. Just gut
yeah.
them. And yeah.
So did you only catch rabbits in that rabbit trap? Or did you catch anything else?
Yeah, we caught a great big fucking tomcat one day, and he wasn't very happy. He had his back leg
No?
in the trap. No, he wasn't. Anyway, we wanted our trap back.
You just wanted your trap back.
And he wasn't too keen on us getting very close, so I got a great big stick and got close enough to him and donged him on the head, and that's quietened him down.
Stunned him long enough.
Yeah, stunned him long enough for Kevin to race in and jump on the trap, and he pulled his leg out, and we grabbed the trap, and he went that way and we went this way.
Off he went.
Yeah.
So you've been shooting and trapping and everything from a very young age.
Yeah, you know, we always had, with, you know, no television in those days, so no need to stay at home. As soon as we got home from school, we'd be out doing something, you know. When we got to Broom Hill, we were madly into athletics and football, because in Manjimup, it was such a big school, you couldn't compete in athletics unless you were like in the top 10%, because they didn't want 80 year threes all competing, you know, in a running race, because it was a hell of a big school at Manjimup. And
I knew it went screwed then, you run like Gumby. Fucking on the legs and fuck.
no, it was pretty good. At Niagara, I was.
You were good, were you? What at particularly? Running or
running
swimming?
and football, yeah.
That's probably why I'm such a nimble, fucking fast, athletic person myself.
Yeah.
Inherited it from him.
So they played women's league there or something, did they? Or
Sorry?
they played women's league football.
Yeah.
But you were good at running.
Yeah.
Why?
100 yards.
Good over
Over
short
100
distance,
yards
long
and 220, yeah. I ran in the 100 yards and the 220.
and did a
Long
wrong.
jump, high jump.
Because weren't you really sick when you were a kid?
Yeah, I had rheumatic fever when I was 6, and the doctors always said, I remember the doctor telling my mum, oh, he won't, expected life expectancy of rheumatic fever patients is about 45.
Yeah.
But don't forget, I got rheumatic fever in 1954, and penicillin was a relatively new. You know, penicillin had been developed during the war in the 40s, like early 40s, and I took penicillin for 6 years after that. Two penicillin tablets a day, as a
Precautionary type thing.
just to prevent any anything happening, any diseases or anything. And eventually the doctor said to me, oh, you might as well give it up, you know. But penicillin still works on me. It's not as if it's taken penicillin all that time has sort of
Built an immunity. Or
built some sort of immunity.
Well, that depends on the bacteria, or the virus, bacteria more than you.
Yeah. But anyway, we
But here's a funny story for you gun freaks out there who would have heard of Doug Barnes, who's now retired. I did a little bit of maths on it. Doug's a couple of years older than you.
yeah.
And when he was about 7 or 8 years old,
Yeah.
he caught polio. And he was in Princess Margaret Hospital for almost a year with polio. So he would have been in Princess Margaret Hospital at exactly the same time you were.
I was in a big ward of about, there would have been at least 20 kids in there. And that was 1954, and I was in hospital there for 6 months, from about February, must have been through to nearly August, because I never went back to school. I was in year 1. I just started year 1 and got rheumatic fever. Went to hospital, came back, and didn't go back to school. And I went back to school the following year and went back into year 1. And I made such a fucking nuisance of myself, they put me up to year 2. Mrs. Lee was the school teacher of year 1, and Miss Lee, her daughter, was the teacher in year 2.
Right.
So she was just palming off
The shit used to her daughter.
Yeah.
Scoop reckons daily penicillin shots would certainly stop you getting the clap.
Yeah. Well, I never got it.
Never got it?
No, I never got it, so it must have worked.
Penicillin works then, doesn't it?
So you spent 6 months in hospital, and how do you? I know Doug Barnes has a particular disgust and hate for peanut butter sandwiches, but you love peanut butter.
No, bullshit, I do. Sundays dinner time at night, the meal you got at night, was made up on the Saturday, and it always included 2 little sandwiches of peanut butter. There was a few other things on the plate as well, and but it always came to, and there's 2 cold peanut butter sandwiches, and they were bloody disgusting. And I've never eaten peanut butter since in the last 65 years.
It's horrible shit.
It is. It's
I
terrible.
don't know why anybody eats peanut butter.
Yeah.
It's horrible shit.
And I've never felt inclined to try Nutella either, which I think looks very much the same.
Yeah, it's just hazelnut instead of peanut. So you grew up you went to school in Broomhill. When did you finish school?
I went to school in Niagara.
Sorry, you went to school in Niagara?
Yeah. Finished school in,
63?
1960 I was year 6, so year 7, 61, and then 3 years of high school. So
65.
65 I finished school. Started an apprenticeship in 66.
Where did you start your apprenticeship?
I started my apprenticeship in the Ford garage in Niagara, but I didn't get on too well with the bloke who ran it, so I transferred to the Holden garage.
Much better, fucking.
Would have learned fuck all.
But
would have done better in the Ford garage because they were fucking full, probably. Plenty of shit fucking cars in there.
No, he was the world's best salesman. He was a magnificent salesman, but he was just a prick to work for.
Yeah.
But anyway, the thing about anyone who's grown up in a small country town will know that everyone knows everyone and knows everything about everyone. So when I went to the Holden garage, they had a lot of farmers with utilities and lots of cars. We were very, very busy, and a lot of people knew me from school, and they knew that I was a shooter. I was a mad shooter because by then I'd bought a Winchester 600 22. Yeah. Well, it was the cheapest.
What, you just turned 16 or something?
When I turned 16, I bought it. Yeah, because in those days you could license it at 16. And a friend of Dad's sold me one of these, and my lifelong love affair has been with these things.
This is your third gun, technically.
This is my third gun.
That actual one there?
Not this actual gun, but one identical to that. My actual gun, I think, a mate of mine's got now. But anyway, yeah, people knew that I was into guns, and a cocky would bring in a ute for a lube and oil change or some bloody thing, and he'd say, "Oh, there's a gun under the seat there, Bill. Do you think you could fix that? It bloody, the safety case doesn't work, or there might be something wrong with it." And so I'd take that home to where I was boarding in town at the time, because Mum and Dad were still on the farm. and I'd fix this gun over the next 3 or 4 days. It'd be under my bed while I wasn't in the house, and when the next time the bloke come into town, I'd bring it back to work, and off he'd go with it, and he'd slip me at 10 shillings or a quid or something, and big money in those days when you're only earning £5.5 a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I got to start fixing firearms when I was about, well, I'd been fixing our air rifle and mucking around with my brother. Brothers both had 22 rifles and so on. But we'd been fixing guns and mucking around with guns for years. And then I just continued repairing firearms for people, and it was about 1976 or 7. I went to it must have been 1977 probably. I went to the police station to license a 22 Hornet, which is another story on its own. And was licensing this gun, no requirement for a property letter in those days. Some people will start crying when I tell you that, but you just walked in and said, yeah, I want to shoot some kangaroos or rabbits or whatever you wanted.
But that was also back in the day when your local cop shop did the licensing.
Yeah, he knew you.
And they knew you,
Yeah,
knew
that's
who
right.
you were.
They certainly knew me by then.
Why, you get in trouble?
I had a little bit of... just because I was such a nice bloke, you feel they knew me. Yeah.
You're probably a prick of a kid. Well,
We were a bit wild in motor cars in those days.
Oh, right.
But anyway, I was filling out this form, about 3 dot points you had to fill out to get a gun licence in those days. And the sergeant comes out and said, "Oh, g'day, Bill. Well, you've got a firearm repairer's licence, have you?" I said, "What the fuck's that?" And I said, "No." "Oh," he said, "we've been sending people to you to get guns fixed for about the last 12 months. So he said, "Yeah, I think you better get a repairer's licence." He said, "Come back next week, I'll organise it." And that was about it. Funny thing, I had to sit an exam, of course.
Which you still do, you have to sit
Still
an exam.
do. So, and I didn't get it the following week. All the paperwork turned up, but I said to the sergeant, "Oh, I don't know whether I could answer it all." He said, "Oh, well, when you feel ready, come back." So I went to the library and I got a few books, read a few technical books. But he practiced up everything I could in my head that I needed to know. And then I went and sat the exam, and I found it not difficult, but it wasn't a walkover either. But I passed it fairly easily. So I was a firearm repairer legally after that, and that's when I found that it was a nice little hobby. You could learn lots of things about different firearms, and I always enjoyed making small parts and making things work again. And that's what I did as a motor mechanic. I was always making things right again for people. And it was an interesting thing.
Pastime for you.
Sorry?
Interesting pastime.
Yeah, interesting pastime. And in a small country town, there's not a hell of a lot to do. If you're not involved in sport, there's not a lot of other things to do other than go to the pub. And the pub, for a apprentice mechanic, the pub was a pretty expensive place to go.
Pretty fucking dangerous place too. You spend all your fucking money and get in fights and shit.
Yeah, well, I never did much of that, thank goodness. But it was. But in those days, living in a little country town like Ninegrup, it was.
Where were you living at that stage?
I think we were in Searle Street in the house we were in.
Oh, you'd already moved there.
I was married and in the city of Ninegrup by then.
Yeah.
And
Because prior to that, where were you living? Over the road from the pub.
Yeah, well, we were living over the road from the pub for a while, and that was dangerous. And
Who are you living with?
My brother and his best mate. They were both working on CBH at that time for a while, and then my best mate came back from the army. He'd been in Vietnam for a bit over a year, and he came back and
That was early.
yeah,
Yep.
he was living with us in that house for a while, and then he got a job in Karratha with his brother building houses. That was 1971, and a good friend of mine who's since passed away as well was at that time working in Port Hedland for Bell Brothers at their service workshop there.
Who was that?
Richard Staz.
Staz.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
No, he died about 4 years ago. And he rang me up one day and said, "Hey Bill, you want a job in Port Hedland?" And I said, "Oh yeah, why not?" He said, "They pay pretty well, you got to work hard." And I said, "Yeah, fine." It just happened that Peter was back in Niagara for a couple of days, so I gave him notice, and he and I drove to Port Hedland in a good old AP5 Valiant, and I went to work for Bell Brothers in Port Hedland. He went back to Karratha and kept on building houses. They were just building Karratha at that time. And
How long did you work in Port Ellen?
about 9 months I was
Did you
there.
do any shooting or anything while you were there, or fuck all?
Well, funnily enough, I took me very dependable. By then I'd cashed in the Winchester 600, and I had one of those terrible bloody Ruger 1022s.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A dangerous bloody things. So liable to go off and shoot someone on their own.
That's it, yeah. Can't be trusted with them.
Sorry?
We can't be trusted with them.
No, that's right. We can't be trusted with them. Anyway,
For those of you watching at home, please note the sarcasm.
There's a lot of sarcasm there.
I didn't know whether anyone would get that. Yeah, but
So you took that up there.
yeah, I took it with me. Of course. Yeah, you got to have a gun. Gun tiger country up there.
Mm.
So, we and while I was there, this is how things happen. I bought a shotgun off a guy that was passing through, and I licensed that about 7 or 8 years later. When there was an amnesty on. But the same thing, it just sat in the gun cupboard and didn't hurt anyone, you know.
Yeah.
All that time, you know, you'd think that being an unlicensed firearm would
No, well, the licensing process isn't in place for the honest people. The licensing process is in place for the dishonest people. But unfortunately now, it's the licensed people that actually cop most of the shit when it comes to penalties.
But,
And there's not as many resources put into
Well,
tackling unlicensed firearms as what.
when you're a licensed
It perhaps
firearms
should
owner,
be.
they've already got all your details, so you're
Yeah,
very
so
easy to
it's
find.
Yeah, that's right.
So you bought a shotgun. What kind of shotgun was it?
16 gauge side by side.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it's still got it.
Yeah, still got it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you don't sell guns, don't you? Buy them.
I remember going out. So that come from Port Edland.
Yeah.
Because I remember shooting rabbits with that when I was a kid.
He doesn't sell guns, he just pulls the fuckers apart and puts them back together.
Yeah.
It's a really good philosophy to have as a gun shop. You know, we don't sell guns, we buy guns.
Yeah. But no, that's been a good gun. I've shot lots of ducks with that.
Back when that was legal as well.
Yeah, back when that was legal. Yeah. Well, I haven't shot it probably in 15 years at least.
But you had a 303.
Sorry?
Did you have a 303?
Yeah, I had a 303, but I don't think I took that to Hedland with me. Well, maybe I did. I
The
can't
whole
remember.
time?
Pardon?
The whole time? So since your first one that you bought,
Yeah.
you've had one essentially the whole
had,
time?
Had one the whole time, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you left it back at home, your brothers would have fucking wrecked it.
Well, like they did to my Ford mainline ute.
Yeah. What'd they do to that?
Would have been a lot because those things were built like tanks.
Oh, it was a tanker. It was a bloody beautiful old thing. 1954.
What colour was it?
Would have been blue and white.
It was grey.
candy apple brown.
Yeah, candy apple brown, they called it. Yeah.
Candy apple red was like the colour of the day. John must reckon it was candy apple brown.
I say, mainline ute, they should have been blue and white.
You reckon?
About the only colours they came in, I'm certain of it.
No, it was a brownie colour, yeah.
Macropod wants to know if you shot any foxes with that shotty.
Yes,
Fucking
I have.
oath we have. Yeah, fucking oath. Heaps of them. I'll tell you a story about that in a bit. But anyway, but 303.
Yeah.
On mainline ute.
The mainline
What did your
ute.
brothers do to your mainline
I
ute?
come back from Port Hedland and they'd bloody cut the roof off the mainline ute so they could go shooting.
We shouldn't have left it there.
What did they cut the roof off with?
An axe.
I think.
Fucking axe. They cut an axe. They took an axe to his mainline ute so they didn't have to open. They just could stand up in the seat and shoot out through the roof.
I mean, because when you think about it, that big tray on the back's not good for standing in.
No, of course
No.
it is. Yeah, bloody hell, I don't know.
So it was Kevin and Ian that did that.
Yeah,
And why did you forget? You forgave Ian?
yeah, I forgave him for it.
Because I've never ripped piss out of your brother for that. I've got to ask him about that.
Yeah.
So next time I see him.
All I'm thinking is right now somebody owes you a mainline ute.
I know.
Yeah.
I'd swapped it for an FJ. I had an FJ Holden before that, and I swapped it for the mainline.
So that's the best decision you made so far.
It wasn't bad. We took it out to Jerramungup to my uncle's farm, and we used it out there for chasing kangaroos and foxes and so on.
Does that Dom's?
Yeah, Uncle Don's place.
Because he had heaps of kangaroos down there, didn't he? Did he have heaps of kangaroos down there?
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Because it was fuck all at bloody Nogrub, really, wasn't it? Never really fucking.
Bugger all around Nogrub, yeah.
But he had a shitload down there.
Yeah, he had hundreds, because his was a war service farm that had only been partly cleared. There was still, 1,500 acres of bush on the farm. And they slowly cleared that, but
So you still had your shotgun.
yeah, and we
And your 1022.
Yeah.
You're shooting your roos with the 1022.
Yeah, heaps.
What about Jonos? Did she shoot
John
your
was-
rab?
Yeah, we would. By this time I had a HR Holden, and we were driving up the back of Don's farm, and over in the far paddock, it was winter time because everything was green as buggery, and there was about 4 or 5 kangaroos jumping along sort of parallel to us. They were at least 100 yards away, and I said to Jonas, here, just fire that at those roos and frighten them, see if they'll stop. And so she just leaned out the window with the 1022, pulled the trigger, bang.
The ute had barely stopped moving.
Well, I hadn't stopped, no. I was
Oh, you still driving?
Yeah. And this poor old kangaroo went.
You fucking drilled a kangaroo on the hop at 100 metres with a 1022.
And we went and had a look and drilled him straight through the side of the head. The unluckiest kangaroo this side.
Yeah, that's it.
Now we hear these stories a lot from your customers, and most of them we take with a grain of
Most of
salt
bullshit.
because you fellas exaggerate. But
Jonas has told me the exact same story.
No,
Jonas told me the story before building.
and I would,
It's like, there's 2 of them that have verified that.
yeah, I wouldn't put it past her. I reckon she'd be a bit of a crack shot.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I could imagine her with all the bloody webbing and stuff on,
Yeah,
fucking grenade in her mouth and stuff, and MG6, M60 or something. Fucking come at me!
But,
So you used to go down and shoot with your 1022 and your shotgun, and you still had your 303.
yeah, but
But it was a pricker thing, wasn't it? Didn't like it.
I didn't really, because it used to bite me a lot. It had a short butt on it, and it meant that when I held the gun and looked through the sight, so my face was about there, and the recoil, my knuckle on my right hand would hit me in the nose every time. And it wasn't until years later I realised it was a short butt. I didn't know you could get short, medium, and long butts. So. But anyway.
Length of pull issue.
Yeah. Anyway, I ended up selling it to one of my mates, and we were both in the rifle club at the time, so it was just a matter of I'd cross it off my card and he'd write it onto his card, and that was it.
Did he have short arms?
No, he was bigger than me, but I never told him it had a short stomach.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to buy it.
Yeah. He wouldn't have bought it otherwise.
So
Well, who'd you sell it to?
he's an
Ryan Bush.
Oh, right,
Yeah, a bit bigger than me, and a bit bigger.
He'd get home every weekend and be like, I don't know why I keep punching myself in the nose.
Yeah,
This guy's a
That's
bastard.
right. Fucking Bill sold me a lemon.
Oh, God.
But so you're shooting 303s, and then what? When did you guys start thinking that you might be interested in shooting pistols?
Well, that was 1973, when there had been a pistol club in Niagara previously, and it had sort of gone defunct, and then there was a little bit of interest again, and so there was a meeting called, and about 10 or 15 blokes turned up to the meeting, and so we reconstituted the club.
Who was at the meeting? You, obviously.
I was there. Terry Davies, Frank Pritchard, one of the Stootleys.
Probably doesn't mean much to you guys, but I grew up with the kids and grandkids of these people.
Yeah.
So.
I can't remember who else. Oh, Len Toms. Who else? I can't remember.
So you got the pistol club going. Right?
Yeah, we got the pistol club going. The Shire gave us some land.
But that was over towards the Tambler, from where it is now.
Yeah, the Tambler end of where the airstrip is now. Yeah. And we built a couple of shooting sheds and target frames and did lots of work, hell of a lot of work. And then when the airstrip got upgraded, because originally it was just good enough for a flying doctor aircraft to come in, or very light aircraft, Cessnas and that sort of stuff. But then when the flying doctor aircraft got bigger and bigger, they decided to upgrade the airstrip. And so where our fallout zone was right on the end of the airstrip, where the ambulance would be loading a patient into the thing. So they thought that's probably not a good place.
No, not very congruent with patient care.
I know the ambulance is right there though.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But so they gave us another old exhausted gravel pit and provided us with a dozer and a driver to do all the mounds, and they did a magnificent job.
What year was that? That must have been early 90s.
Probably around 90, 1990, yeah.
Because I remember running around there and at the old place,
Oh yeah.
making a nuisance of myself.
Yeah.
And at the new
Because
place.
the first couple of fox shoots were held at the old pistol club.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
remember that.
one of them, I remember it poured with rain. And when everyone got back there, we had a pig on a sheep on a spit, and a license to sell grog. We were selling grog until about 3 o'clock in the morning. And
I remember.
we built the new pistol club down in the other, which is now probably one of the nicest pistol clubs in the country area of WA.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. And it was all made from reclaimed bricks, wasn't it?
Yeah, well,
I remember that. Because I spent a majority of my time out there chipping fucking cement off bricks.
So
I had
knowing
a fucking big pile of bricks covered in cement, and then I had to chip fucking cement off them and then make another pile.
I've got a feeling, knowing Zaine, that he probably did about 6. But I did it all day.
It felt like 20,000. It felt like a lot. But yeah, and so the pistol club got going in Niagara.
yeah, well and truly.
And you were quite involved in that
Yeah, we
the whole time.
we did.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, at the old pistol club, I don't know if you remember, but I think I've got a feeling it was Burley threw a fucking cup of bloody petrol on the fire and just about set himself alight one night.
Oh,
But you're probably full of piss.
He wouldn't do anything like that.
I remember someone threw a cup of fuel on the fire to get it going and fucking...
Sure, it wasn't
Set fire.
wasn't Dixon.
Oh, maybe it was Dixon, yeah. That's the sort of shit he would do.
He'd be silly enough to
So-
do that. But yeah, it was just a bit more of an involvement with firearms, joining the pistol club and shooting, and then travelling around the country clubs, as well as coming to the city and shooting at Fremantle and Kalamunda and Perth. It was all good fun.
And Perth in the old days was on Kalamunda Road,
Yeah,
next to the fucking dog.
yeah.
Next to Kalamunda. So
Haven, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dog Haven or some shit.
got a question here for you, Bill, from Nathan. He's asking, what is the most satisfying shot you have taken, and with what firearm?
I can tell you because it stands out. We were shooting on a guy's place who he owned firearms, but he didn't like shooting much. Anyway, we used to go out there and he'd drive around. He'd have all the gates open prior to us getting there, wherever we were going to go. He'd planned it all. He was a great planner. He planned where we were going to go, and he always took us around the perimeter of his farm first, so that if there was any foxes that were in the neighbour's place, we could shoot them as well. And he'd already teed that up with the neighbours, you know, that if we saw a fox in their paddock, we could shoot it. Okay. Anyway, we're driving around this guy's place, and we saw a pair of eyes in the neighbour's paddock, and so Frank stops, and I leant over the top of the bonnet.
What rifle did you have?
My Seiko 6mm PPC.
Oh, right. So
And
yeah.
Leant over the top of the roof and gave him about, because he was a long way away, and I thought, oh well, if I don't get him, bad luck. But I gave him about 6 inches of elevation, with Kentucky elevation, and pressed the trigger off nicely, and I heard a thump, and the eyes disappeared. And I said, oh, I got him, Frank. Oh no, I think he ran down the hill away from you. Oh, okay. Anyway, took off. Next morning, Frank rings me up and says, yeah, you got that fox all right. He said he was standing on a contour drain, on the bank of the contour drain, and when you hit him, he just fell into the drain. And he said, this bloke was so well planned. He dropped something white outside the door when I fired the shot, so he knew where we'd fired the shot from, because he was going to come back and have a look. He didn't tell me that, but he was going to come back and have a look anyway, you know. So he knew exactly where we were, and he paced it out 330 yards, or 330 good paces, he said, over a fence, and that was 25.5 grains of 2207 behind a 70 grain Sierra.
That was your hot load.
Yeah, that was the hot load.
Yeah.
But down there, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, a bit cool.
When
Whose place was that?
Formby's, Frank Pritchard.
Yeah, Pritchard.
Yeah, and the fox was in. I can't remember the next.
Is
one.
that block on the corner where you go down South Formby around the corner to head south? You know, coming out of Nangra.
Yeah.
And you go through 2 turns and you go around a big corner and you go straight on to Griffiths's.
Yeah, you go straight on the Griffith, go around the corner to go down South Formby, yeah.
That block on the corner there.
No, yeah, it wasn't in there, it was down, further down.
Oh, okay.
Next to Clary Cook's farm was the one the fox was in,
Yeah.
where I shot the fox. Yeah, that was the best shot. I reckon it was the best shot I've ever had hunting. I bowled a few foxes over on the run, but usually closer than 100 metres, you know. So, and I don't always wait for a fox to stop. I think because if you practice it, it'll come to you. You just have to give them a bit of lead, work out, you know, how far away is he. If he's 100 metres, well, you can aim dead on and just move the crosshair in front of him and press the trigger. And if he's running directly across in front of you, you've got a fair bit of animal to hit. And if you aim out in front of him about 4 or 5 inches, you're going to hit him in the shoulder or the ribs or somewhere there vital.
Yeah.
So I always give it a go. If he don't want to stop, try this then.
It's all about feel though. You've got to do it a bit and miss a few shots.
Oh yeah, that's right.
To know, you know. One of my best recollections of Bill shooting was we used to go down to Albany and shoot in the military club down there. Bill always liked shooting military guns and that sort of shit. And we'd go down there and we'd shoot at 300 metres. And you had a 96 Mauser. And I think I had a 310 Cadet or something.
Yeah.
And I remember you firing 290, like you fired your first 2 siders, and then you can either keep your siders or you can shoot 10 rounds. Yeah. So he fired the first 2 shots and they were 9s. And Bill said, "Ah, fuck it, I'll keep it." And then shot 8 10s in a row. So he could have bloody, yeah, if he didn't take his 9s, he could have shot even better. And
Yeah, that was a good gun.
good fun going, actually.
Yeah.
But you're in the pistol club.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you a little bit about that day I got, the sergeant told me I needed to get a repairer's license.
Yeah.
I was licensing, I just traded in my old faithful 1022 and bought a Bruno Hornet, which is what I'd wanted ever since I could read. I'd wanted a
So
Bruno
it's
Hornet.
about 24 or 25.
No?
I thought it was only last year he learned it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I got this Bruno and rolled up to the cop shop with it to get it licensed. And
What do you mean you rolled up to the cop shop with the gun?
well, I might have got a permit. I can't remember. I can't remember getting a permit. But anyway, I turned up at the cop shop and said, "I've sold this 1022. They're so dangerous." No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Where'd you sell the 1022 to? Don't remember.
I traded in.
Oh, okay.
When I bought the Hornet. The Hornet was second hand. It was 1974 it was built. It was 1978 when I was licensing it. And the copper looks at it, you know how dainty the Bruno Hornets are. He looks at it and says, "Oh, 22, yeah, right up." And I never thought much of it. He wrote it onto my licence as a 22.
Just 22. Yeah.
And it wasn't until, like three bloody renewals later I realised that it was the right serial number, but it was the wrong calibre. And kudos where they're due. I went to the cop shop and said, "Oh, this is recorded incorrectly. If things get tough, I won't be able to buy ammo for it." Well, I was reloading my own ammo anyway. And the copper took all the details down and buggered me dead. The next renewal I got had 22 Hornet written on it. You wouldn't believe it, would you? No?
Yeah, it just got fixed.
Yes. Isn't it amazing? Does that happen nowadays?
Ah, really. It depends. Like, if gun shops have good relationships with certain people within licensing, things like that can get fixed. But unfortunately, bureaucracy has gotten involved a little bit as well, and things aren't as easy to fix as what they used to be, regardless of who's at fault.
Yeah.
Accuracy, my argument would be that accuracy is far more important than holding people accountable for little mistakes and stuff. But anyway, pistol shooting.
Great fun.
The reason I want to focus on pistol shooting is because you were quite successful at it.
Yeah, because I tried hard. And I did a lot of training.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought it just came naturally to you.
I didn't want to say it. I did find it come naturally, fairly easy to do. But one of my mates actually found it so easy that he pissed off and went and did rifle shooting. And he said to me one day, "Oh, that pistol shooting's too easy." And it was for him. He came to the club one day and shot it 95 or some bloody thing straight off the bat. He'd never fired a handgun in his life before.
A bit like you, Trent.
Yeah,
Never came
sounds a
back.
little bit like me.
Fuck off.
So I went to the rifle club one day when he was shooting there, and old Alec McGuire, one of the best rifle shots at Worgabutt, said to me, "Oh, Bill, you better have a shot." I turned up late, and I'd come from Katanning. That's right. I'd been in Katanning. I came here, went by Worgabutt just to say hello to him, beer probably. And old Alec says, "Here, Bill, shoot my rifle. I've just finished shooting. It's shooting all right." So I lay down and shot 47.4 or something.
Dropped 3 points.
Yeah, dropped 3 points and shot 4 inner balls, yeah. And I turned around to Dixon and said, "Oh, geez, this rifle shooting is too easy, isn't it?"
Oh, Dixon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did pistol shooting.
Yeah.
His ass is fucking too easy and went shooting rifles.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah. He was.
Because I know he used to go down to the pistol club a bit, but
Yeah,
not.
that's right. He later on he used to come along to the pistol club quite a bit, but yeah, in the beginning when we were trying to encourage new members, he was keen on shooting rifles, and we tried to get him to come and shoot pistols. And he would have been a great asset because he was a pretty good shot, or a very good shot.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I used to, with the encouragement of a few people, we'd go and shoot at Albany Pistol Club, Kojonup when I was shooting there. That was the first open I went to. Kojonup held an open.
Is anyone still watching?
Yeah, we've got 36 people on at the moment.
Okay. I thought everyone had gotten bored by now and left. Anyway.
Been gone for an hour though.
Have we? God.
Yeah, we're actually going to run out of time for us. So.
Oh well, I'll
No.
Keep going.
You've got a couple of funny things that we need to cover, but anyway.
You just finish up, and the people can wait for what we're going to say next week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Kojonup held an open, and must have been about 1975, maybe something. They held an open shoot. I remember the first open I went to, really nervous, you know, and young woman shooting next to me. Very good shot.
Right.
Showed me up. I can't remember her name now.
No, that's right.
But she was in the state squad, I think, and Rod Hack was there. That was the first time I met Rod Hack. And I remember her getting herself positioned and then leaning down with a bit of chalk and outlining her toes so she knew where to put her feet.
Put her feet in exactly the same position every
next
time.
time, yeah.
Clever idea.
And yeah, and I got the bug after that, and I went to quite a few shoots, opens here in the city, Corder, Albany, of course, every time they held a shoot.
Geraldton, we used to go.
Yeah, Geraldton,
I
Kalgoorlie.
mean, these might be a bit later now, but I remember when I was started shooting,
Yeah,
so 1997,
yeah,
and from there on we were going to
yeah,
Geraldton, to Kalgoorlie, to
yeah, all around the place, everywhere, anywhere there was an open on, we'd go to it.
and you got pretty good at it.
Yeah, I specialised a bit in rapid fire, which I really love. And it's the only match that you can make 5 mistakes in a row without any trouble whatsoever, you know. So, and Rod Hack was a great inspiration to me, and he came to Nangrup 2 or 3 times to compete against me, so that make me try harder, you know.
Yeah, okay.
And while we were getting ready for the 1999 national champs were being held here at Perth Pistol Club, I'd go 7:30 every morning. I'd go out to the pistol club and shoot 30 or 40 rounds on no targets, but practice my timing on the targets. I had a little device that I bought from Mary Clangick, and it was like a timer that had a beeper on it, and you could have the recorder, the switch in your hand, and press the switch, and it would beep when the target, you know, when the target was supposed to have turned to you, and then it would beep, 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 and you were supposed to shoot on those beeps, yeah. And it wasn't a bad training aid. It was good to get your timing like that. And we did pretty well at the first.
And what was your son doing at the time? Going to school?
Yeah.
He's left behind. You were training your ass out in the mornings and thought, fuck Zaine, leave him to his own fucking devices.
Yeah, well, he's probably still asleep.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. I didn't get any help.
On your own.
Alright, so
It's already 7:15. So.
Okay, well, that might.
we'll finish up in a second. I just wanted to talk about the last funny story that I really enjoyed, which was the back when Bustleton used to have a club.
Yeah, that's right. We used to go to Bustleton and shoot the one gun. Yeah, that was a great.
So what was the one gun match?
You only used a standard pistol, long rifle ammo, and you shot 30 shots at 3 pistol, a full standard match, I think. A full sports pistol match.
Yep.
And half a rapid fire match as well. 30 rounds of rapid
But
fire.
this wasn't a proper competition.
No, it wasn't it wasn't a sanctioned competition. There was no malfunctions allowed.
And you weren't scoring your own targets. You had a denominator score at the start, or was that only later?
No, that was later.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but the one gun.
Yeah.
Did it get many people there?
Oh yeah, big crowd, 60 people sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Real.
So it was a popular show.
Yeah, very
It was
popular,
A lot
yeah.
of fun.
Yeah.
So how did you get to the bus and one gun?
Oh, in the last time we went, I think we took the school bus. We had a school bus then,
Yeah.
and we took everyone across in the
How
school
many
bus.
blokes?
I can't remember. It would have been 10 or 15, 10 or 12 blokes. I
The
remember.
Griffiths Garth was there.
Yeah, Garth.
Frank Hamiljack was there.
Frank, yeah. Peter Burley. Oh, I can't remember.
And so you left Niagara. How far did you get before you ran out of piss?
Katanning, I think. Kojin
Kojin up, I think.
Kojin up.
So you got the
So
Kojin
not
up.
far.
Not far.
No.
I remember you were on the cross the road.
Yeah. Got the Kojin up, you'd run out of piss.
Yeah.
So to buy more.
Yeah.
And then where'd you get to before you ran out of more piss?
I think the boy up Brook. I'm not sure.
I thought there's some place in between, there's like a little pub on the
Oh,
corner.
that was on the way back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you drank a lot of piss on the way over
Yeah,
there.
and a fair bit on the way back as well.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a good weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. And you stitched bloody what's his name up when you pinched Mike Castiniano's missus on the arms.
Yeah, we're all lined up for waiting to get served for our dinner, and they cook a lovely feed over there. And I was standing behind Mike Castiniano. His wife was in front of Mike, and behind me was
Mike Castiniano is probably the best pistol shooter that WA's ever created.
Yeah,
So,
ever had. And he's a great bloke, Mike. God almighty, he was
top bloke.
good fun. Anyway, and Barry Anderson was standing behind me, and Barry Anderson could have been my brother. Blonde, blue eyes. We're very similar.
He always had a big grin on his
And he
face.
always had a big grin on his face. That was his letdown. And I reached around buddy Mike and pinched his missus on the bum. And of course I looked away, and she turned around, and all she could see was Barry Anderson with a big grin on his face. Oh God almighty, it was cold. I thought that was
Stitched him up.
no, I stitched him up well and truly.
Wasn't Barry the guy that always dressed reasonably nice?
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere he went, he dressed nicely, and he could get into bloody weddings and shit. And
Oh yeah, God, he was a bit of a tiger, Barry. Yeah.
yeah. But then you came back. I think Garth drove on the way back because everyone else was too pissed or something.
He Garth rode for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it was all good fun. Hell of a good time was had by all. There was no animosity, no fighting, nothing. You know, this is the thing. There would have been probably 250 firearms there that weekend, and no one got shot.
No, it was the culture within firearm sport is very positive. You know, recreational firearm shooting has got a brilliant culture. I was 11 when I started pistol shooting, and I went to competitions all over the fucking state.
Yeah.
And it was a great sport for me to grow up and compete in and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And not to say that, when I was a kid, I was tall, relatively speaking, so I was fast runner, I wasn't a bad swimmer and all that sort of stuff. But shooting isn't a physical sport, it's a mental sport.
Oh, terribly mental. But you do have to be physically fit.
Yeah, you do, you have to be physically fit.
You've got to have good muscle fitness, sort of.
Yeah. But it was an incredibly good environment to grow up in because you matured quickly.
Yeah.
You were given a responsibility, which as a kid, as an 11, 12-year-old, I actually started shooting before I could legally start shooting. Because 12 is when you first supposed to start shooting. I was 11. And so everyone just shut the fuck up and just let me bloody shoot. And then when I was 12, I became a member.
Yeah.
But I was growing up and shooting with adults.
Yeah.
You know, from the word go, I was one of the only juniors in Nangara.
Yeah.
And then there was more juniors as I got, you know, into the competitions and stuff. But I grew up around adults, and I was competing with adults, and I was given a responsibility. I was given guns, and I had to treat them well. And when I was a kid, you know, before I had a license, I had my own box with 5 guns in it, you know, at least 3 guns in it.
Yeah.
That I would track around all over the place with my guns, you know, and I had to look after them, make sure they were, you know, locked up and stuff, and you know, not that anyone stole anything, but you know, it was a very good sport for my own maturity, you know. And
Well, it's good for juniors, in my opinion, in that teaches discipline, and it teaches them to interact with adults other than their parents a lot, you know, because they're given instructions by other adults, they are trained by other adults. You know, it's a great sport to give people discipline, and people, adults as well, but juniors, it's very good for them, my opinion. Yeah, pistol shooting was good to us, and
I still maintain to this day, and perhaps it's confirmation bias, but if you want to learn how to shoot, I really do think that pistol shooting is perhaps one of the more difficult, technically one of the more difficult disciplines to do.
yeah,
And that if you want to learn if you want to learn to shoot correctly, you know, all the marksmanship principles, they are tested the most in pistol shooting.
absolutely. I've said for years, after I grew up with rifles and was never a terribly fantastic good rifle shot until I learnt to shoot pistols well. And once I learnt to shoot pistols well, my rifle shooting got a lot better. And absolutely no doubt about that. One of the other things that helped me a lot in pistol shooting was I had a business that required a lot of jumping up and down off trucks, and I was never as fit as that time. You know, I was perhaps when I was last year at school, I was as fit as that, or even the first couple of years playing football. But lumping heavy loads around and moving drums full of fuel and so on like that, and jumping up and down off the tray of a truck, certainly got you fit, and I was certainly fit, and it made it a lot easier to shoot well when you're fit.
Yeah, when you.
So, but anyway.
But in contrast to that, I remember one Sunday morning, I'd been out on the piss, so I must have been at least, we'll say 18. I've been out on the piss and I was hungover, and you come into my room and said, "Come on, we're going down to the club." "Oh, fuck off, I don't want to go shooting." "No, come on, we're going to go shooting." And it was sports pistol.
Yeah.
And I shot a club record. It's been broken since,
Yeah.
but I remember one of the best scores I've ever shot with a serious, very painful hangover.
Yeah.
In direct contrast to your fitness
Yeah.
idea. I think it was mainly because I couldn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I was wasn't thinking about overthinking things.
No,
I
that
was
was
just
right.
allowing my body to shoot the match, which I'd shot so many times before, without my mind interrupting me and fucking me up.
Yeah, well, that happens to a lot of people. Thinking too much about it. What you need to do is practice and practice and practice, so that your muscle memory gets so good that the gun comes to exactly the same position every time, and you are holding it exactly the same every time. And that way you'll see the sights the same every time. It's just muscle. Anyway, we better go home.
Alright, thanks for listening. I didn't plan for it to go for as long as what it did, but
We still have plenty of other things to talk about,
pretty
but
interesting.
it was good. I think people like that.
We'll have to talk about Swift projectiles and Adler shotguns and stuff next week.
Yep.
But thanks, guys.